What's up, party people, and welcome back to another episode of NYC Foodways, your weekly food and culture discussion from the cultural capital of the world. My name is John, and this week's episode is dedicated to the lives and legacies of the Neville brothers, who helped me understand that it comes a piece at a time. How can we define the health of a system? In August of 2007, the New Yorker magazine published Sowing for Apocalypse, a piece covering the history of humanity's seed-saving endeavors and the development of the Svalbard Global Seed Vault. The vault was created to serve as the last line of defense against the mass eradication of plant life. In the face of catastrophic climate change, the rise of biotechnology, and the human-powered extinction of the Anthropocene era, scientists around the world realized the need to preserve, Noah's Ark style, our species' ability to revegetate the Earth. This project involved moving millions of seeds to the far-flung Svalbard archipelago in order to safeguard the end result of 9,000 years of selectively bred foodways. Seeds are the material foodways of our past, present, and future, just as foodways are the cultural seeds of our past, present, and future. If and when the collapse occurs, the stewards of the Global Seed Vault will be able to resow at least some of what was lost. So with this in mind, how can we define the health of a system? I'd say that it can be defined by the number of forms the system is able to support. In the natural world, this would be an ecosystem's level of biodiversity. For a human system, physical health is linked to the number of forms of movement one is able to execute, also known as one's physical fitness. But what of the health of a city? I reckon that this can be defined by the number of culturally distinct neighborhoods it is able to support. And by that definition, Manhattan is gravely ill. For much of our fair city's history, Manhattan, especially Lower Manhattan, was a patchwork of so-called ethnic enclaves. Sure, there were longer established, wealthier, and more fully assimilated parts of the city, but by and large, immigrant communities carved out geographical, social, and cultural niches in the neighborhoods they settled. These areas imbued New York with the flavor I am drawn to, flavor accessible in the current day through the patronizing of heritage food businesses, and flavor that is rapidly on the wane due to high rents, gentrification, and the associated ills of progress. Unlike the seeds stored in Svalbard, these highly localized foodways cannot be transplanted and are very much tied to the land they exist on and in. While walking around one of the wealthy sections of Lower Manhattan one recent evening, I was struck by how intensely artificial everything seemed. The streets were the same as I'd remembered, sort of, but the scenes on them, diners reveling on the sidewalk, masses of out-of-towners milling about, some with open containers of alcohol, felt more like a theme park, a New York-flavored interactive simulation than an area of land where New Yorkers, much less generations of New Yorkers, live and work. Perhaps that's why I spend so much time in Manhattan's Chinatown, the last region of downtown to successfully resist capitulating to the monocultural juggernaut of capital, development, and gentrification. It is the only area of Manhattan of any appreciable size that has retained some semblance of its character over the last several decades, and we owe it to ourselves and our future to do all we can to save it from falling victim to the same forces that did in so many other downtown neighborhoods. If New York has a hope, it lies in Chinatown. Big box stores are virtually non-existent, fast food chains are rare, and one-of-a-kind businesses, especially food businesses, are everywhere. Leaving aside the restaurants, cafes, and myriad eateries of Chinatown, which will be the topic of discussion in a future series dedicated to dining in the area, the neighborhood supports several micro-business districts and types of stores almost impossible to find elsewhere in Manhattan, much less all in one neighborhood. I love this type of stuff, and it very much speaks to a pre-internet era city. Are you looking for lighting, both industrial and residential? Head to Chinatown. Do you need menus printed? Head to Chinatown. Appliances, dishware, and other supplies for your restaurant? Head to Chinatown. How about signs for your business? Head to Chinatown. Wholesale noodles, dumplings, produce, tofu, and seafood? Head to Chinatown. This diversity of business interests likewise mirrors the neighborhood's cultural diversity, both its diversity in contrast to the areas that surround it, namely the bland financial district and stomach-turning environs of Soho, and its own internal diversity. To say that Chinatown has one culture is as absurd as saying that New York City has one culture. Take a close look at the businesses of any single block in the neighborhood and you will generally find shops staffed by and serving immigrants from numerous parts of China, with each group sporting their own unique cultural pathways. Whereas other neighborhoods hold only remnants of their long-lost immigrant past, most notably the Polish and Ukrainian fragments in the East Village and the German residuum in Yorkville, like the last white rhino, They are beautiful but only valuable in a totemic or representational sense, as they are unable to reproduce, and once they're gone, they're gone. Not so in Chinatown, where migrants continue to arrive, most recently in waves from Fujian province, keeping the flame bright. Returning to the New Yorker article discussed earlier, the author notes that historically, seeds had to be protected from animals, insects, as well as mammals. Likewise, the fragile seed banks of culturally rich neighborhoods must be protected from the insectoid real estate development hive mind and barely human proponents of gentrification who desire to clean up the neighborhood in order to attract young workers. Later in the article, readers are informed that seeds have to be regularly germinated to ensure that they are still viable. What are we doing to germinate the cultural seeds of New York? What businesses do we regularly support? What development do we allow to exist through our passivity? What causes do we rally behind? What would the city be without Chinatown? Our famed melting pot, which was once most fully expressed through the agglomeration of Lower Manhattan's medley of culturally distinct neighborhoods, has been gradually reduced to a ginormous, ugly, glass and steel skyscraper-shaped pot of yuppified Velveeta cheese. Dull, hydrogenated, unhealthy, overly expensive, artificial, and completely uninteresting to those of us who thrive on the frictive energy of lived experience, the experience and experiences of successive waves of immigration. I should remind viewers here that Chinatown as we know it has been around for over 150 years, who've continued to voyage here from the other side of the world, here to the seat of global financial capital, here to the land with the 2 adjoining census tracts with the greatest income disparity in the country, here where the median home prices read as farce, here where the march of so-called progress feels as inevitable as the rising of the sun, here where every week we are forced to lament the passing of one more business we thought we couldn't do without, here where it all seems so much grander, because it is, here at the heart of it all, in Chinatown, we find the real New York. What are we going to do to save it?